Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gene's Reviews. Reviews from a regular dude in my car. Okay, if you're not yet subscribed, please think about subscribing. And thank you to everyone who is subscribed. And if you're going to subscribe, make sure you tap that bell icon so you can be notified every single time that I upload a new video. Also, stick around until the end of the video. I have a joke at the end, and it helps with the algorithm. Today we're going to check one out from a channel that I really like that I haven't done in quite a while. The channel's called Consciousness, and it says angels and demons are actually aliens. That's something that I've often wondered, if they kind of coincide with each other, and I think they kind of do. But let's check it out and see what they have to say about it.
In the 9th century BCE, two men were walking across a dried portion of the Jordan River when something strange happened. From the heavens, a fiery vehicle appeared and took one of the men with it. In an instant, the man disappeared in the ensuing whirlwind, leaving the other in awe. What I described to you wasn't a typical alien abduction story. Instead, it was actually a famous biblical tale of Elijah the prophet, who was taken up to the heavens in a whirlwind, body and spirit days after his encounter with an angelic being. The mid-20th century saw the rise of people's interest in extraterrestrials. From the Roswell incident to the abduction of Barney and Betty Hill, there had been no shortage of UFO stories, with some having actual proof of the incidents. But are UFOs just modern phenomena? Numerous historical accounts and artworks suggest this might not be the case. For instance, people in Basel, Switzerland in 1566 and Nuremberg in 1561 reported seeing strange phenomena in the sky. With no rational explanation to turn to, people ascribe it as miraculous or supernatural events. Now, this begs the question, have there always been UFO sightings in medieval and ancient history that we don't know of? Ancient aliens is a theory that's been around for years now. It posits the possibility that extraterrestrials have been visiting us for millennia, perhaps ever since the beginning of time. This theory also proposes that the deities from ancient mythology like Zeus, Thor, and Ra were actually aliens who had come down to Earth to impart their knowledge. But can we say that the deities our ancestors worshipped were a race from a highly advanced civilization that brought with them cutting-edge technology from their own planet? What if, just like the deities of the olden days, the angels and demons themselves also came from another planet? As absurd as this theory sounds at first glance, the possible evidence we found is startling to say the least.
It doesn't sound absurd to me, not at all.
There are many events in the Bible that sound quite similar to alien encounters today. Most of them involved either angels or demons. At the beginning of this video, we talked about the prophet Elijah. Elijah was a prophet and a miracle worker who had experienced numerous angelic encounters. In some traditions, he was even believed to have been an actual angel and just assumed human form. However, the full context of the story is recounted in 2 Kings chapter 2. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Taken literally, Elijah was assumed to be heaven. But the description of the vehicle that took Elijah, as well as how it appeared and vanished, bears an uncanny similarity to alien abductions today. The chariot of fire and horses is a spaceship, the whirlwind being a gust of wind and sudden disappearance. But this description by no means qualifies as unique to history. Another biblical figure and prophet, Ezekiel, also sees a similar phenomenon. In the first chapter of Ezekiel, the prophet describes in detail his visions of God. I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire were what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, their feet were like those of a calf and gleamed like burnished bronze. Under their wings, they had human hands. All 4 of them had faces and wings, and the wings of one touched the wings of another. Each one went straight ahead. They did not turn as they moved. Ezekiel 1:4-9. In this passage, Ezekiel describes the angels coming down from heaven. They are certainly quite different from what we are used to imagining when it comes to them. In fact, rather than resembling people, they look more like unknown, terrifying beings from another planet or dimension. In other
That's
words,
creepy looking.
aliens. Like Elijah, Ezekiel also saw a strange vehicle, massive whirlwinds and flashing lights. Without our knowledge of modern technologies, a flying saucer landing on an open field, or even merely flying overhead, would be pretty much described in a similar way. An otherworldly chariot surrounded by light and fire. Moreover, if you see a being you've never seen before, you might also describe it using the closest words you know. Interestingly, godly beings from various mythologies have been described in a similar manner. For instance, the ancient Greek god Apollo travels across the skies in a fiery chariot. Quetzalcoatl from Aztec and Mayan mythologies is often described as descending from the stars, and his arrival heralded by a bright light from the sky. But perhaps the most compelling ones were from the Hindu and Sumerian mythology.
Seems to be a chariot a lot of the time.
In Hindu mythology, the gods were described as traveling in vimanas, flying machines capable of traversing vast distances. It's also capable of aerial maneuvers that seemingly defy the laws of physics. On the other hand, the Sumerian Anunnaki are explicitly described as godly beings who descended from Anu, or the god of the sky. These beings came to Earth and brought mankind knowledge and civilization, often depicted as descending from the heavens on flying chariots, or boats of heaven, similar to what we now call as UFOs. Ancient Sumerian texts also tell of Anunnaki having been the one to create humans. There's even a whole theory of how Anunnaki, who are aliens themselves, created humans through genetic engineering. You can watch our video about it, link in the description.
I think I did that
Aside from the accounts in the books of Ezekiel and 2 Kings, other passages in the Bible also indicate the alien origins of angels. The book of Genesis famously recounts the creation of the world and humanity. However, there's a strange passage in chapter 6 that still baffles people to this day. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans
Nephilim,
and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Genesis 6:4. This verse is popularly interpreted as the fallen angels coming down from the heavens and interbreeding with humans. This interpretation was supported by a passage from the book of Enoch. And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. Book of Enoch. In the traditional explanation, the sons of God here were the Watchers, a group of angels led by Samyaza. Instead of doing God's work, however, they lusted after the beautiful women they saw and married them. Their children were known as the Nephilim. The terms heroes of old, men of renown, were often interpreted literally. They were powerful beings whose capabilities were beyond human, just like the demigods and heroes of other mythologies. The hybrid race of Nephilim is strong and gigantic in stature. However, they were cruel and wicked. Some people interpret that these sons of God were extraterrestrials sent here from another planet. Whether on a mission or on exile, nothing is certain, but once they have broken the ironclad rule to never mingle with humans, they have been ousted, hence the term fallen angels. This alone wouldn't be enough to warrant extraterrestrial
So the Nephilim are fallen angels.
These verses from the book of Enoch might change your mind. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them.
And they crossbred with
charms, two enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. Book of Enoch 7. And Azazel taught men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Simjaza taught enchantments
Kind of
and
like
wood cuttings.
Adam
Armanus
and
the
Eve,
resolving
Cain
of
and Abel.
enchantments. Barakijal astrology. Kokabel the constellations. Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds. Arakiel the signs of the earth. Shamsiel the signs of the sun. And Sariel the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. Book of Enoch 8:1-3. So, the angels not only married the women, but also taught them knowledge, including crafts, technology, and magic. Similar to the Anunnaki, the Watchers also came down to teach humanity advanced knowledge, which eventually lead them to corruption. Interestingly,
Usually
the story
does.
of a deity imparting knowledge to humans is also a common theme among various ancient cultures. In Greek mythology, Prometheus was a titan who was punished for giving fire to humans, which can be interpreted as knowledge. In Sumerian mythology, Enki was also the benefactor and protector of humans,
I've heard of
punished by
Enki.
his brother Enlil for this very reason.
And Enlil.
Across the Atlantic, Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl are both the gods of knowledge in their respective mythologies. Both are associated with giving knowledge to humans, and both are represented by a serpent. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Of course, the serpent in the Garden of Eden ran on the same premise. While the serpent in the Genesis story was often interpreted as a common snake, some believe he was more than that. In some traditions, the serpent is believed to be either Satan or Samael, both fallen angels. Before it was cursed by God, the serpent might have the ability to speak and walk on its feet. If it was, is it also possible that the serpent might not have been a common snake, but a reptilian being with high intelligence?
Right.
We can't finish
There
the
you
story of the
go.
Garden of Eden without mentioning the two angels that
Reptilians.
guarded the gates with two flaming swords. The Garden of Eden was where the humans were created. Believers of this theory suggest that the garden was actually a sophistic laboratory run by advanced intergalactic beings. In this interpretation, the serpent might be a dissident of God, much like the Watchers were, who went into the laboratory to ruin the creation of the new species by either imparting knowledge to Adam and Eve or directly interfering with their development. Because they were no longer adapted to the pristine environment of the laboratory, they had to be expelled. Cherubim were highly skilled gods charged with guarding the laboratory. And the flaming swords. They could be interpreted as high-energy weapons designed to keep out intruders. Ancient texts described angels and demons as having supernatural powers. From flaming swords, heavenly chariots, miraculous healing powers, and transportation capabilities that defy the laws of physics, to telepathic powers, there were plenty of descriptions that could point out that the origins of angels and demons might have been extraterrestrials.
I think
While
so.
these weren't hard
I've
proof
thought
of the
that
theory
for
that
years
angels
now.
and demons were aliens,
I've wondered
it is
about
an
that.
interesting theory nonetheless that helps us reconsider our past in a new light. Or, as it is said in Hebrews 13:2, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." In an experiment presented by Harvard researchers, they suggest that aliens may be walking among us, dubbed cryptoterrestrials. These beings may be responsible for the unidentified aerial phenomena. They either live underground, near the moon, or even walk among us. But you can learn more about this in our detailed video on the subject. Just
Well,
click
that
the
was pretty
thumbnail on the
cool.
screen.
You know, it's funny. When I was growing up and in high school and stuff, I never liked stuff like this. And now, I love it. It just really interests me. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments down below. Now, let's change things up a little bit with a joke. I think I got the peekaboo virus. I better go to the ICU.